peeps, welcome to another video in a very different location today. I am on holiday in Croatia, but I decided to take my new blouse away with me because I wanted to film the intros and outros for this series and also the twirls for this look whilst we were out here. I've styled it with my white rayon wraparound trousers. I'm not sure that this would be how I would wear it anywhere except for on holiday, but I forgot to bring my jeans with me, which is probably what I would wear this with. I really like this blouse. It is the New Look 6560 blouse, and it was voted for by my Patreon peeps. They also picked this fabric, and I'm really glad they did because I absolutely love it. Today is part one of a 4-part sew along. Today we are going to be finding our size, tracing out our pattern, and making any alterations that we need to make to that pattern. So let's get started. For this sew along, you will need your pattern, fabric. If you're using sheer fabric like me, a lining that matches, bias binding, matching thread, pins, a safety pin, 1/4 inch elastic, your marking tool of choice, pinking shears, fabric shears, paper scissors, French curve. You're also going to need an iron, an ironing board, sewing machine, and pattern making paper. The first thing that you want to do is iron your tissue paper so it's nice and flat. The next thing is to work out what size that you're going to make. So according to this, I'd need a size 12 for the bust and also a size 12 for the waist, which is a nice change. The hips, however, I need a size 18. Now, with the New Look pattern, or at least this New Look pattern, they have actually done each pattern front separately. It's not nested, which is kind of good and also a little bit annoying because obviously I need to grade between the two sizes. But if you have a look at the pattern piece, it has the finished hip measurements listed on the pattern piece here, and then it tells you that there's about 5.5 inches of wearing ease built in. So I need the size 12, which is up here, and it says that the finished hip measurement is 39.5 inches, which is way too small for my hips, but given the type of top that it is and where it's actually going to sit, I think I can get away with it without having to add anything to the bottom, which is quite good. So I'm going to trace out the size 12 straight, and what I could possibly do is then overlay that over the size 18, which is what I need for the hips, lining up the center front, and then just see how much of a difference that there is in the pattern and see if I can maybe grade between the two, but I don't think I need to. I'm going to play this one by ear, but yes, size 12 for me to start with. I want to make all of these options at some point in the future, so I'm going to trace out every single pattern piece. Once I've cut out my pieces, I now need to make some alterations. Now for me, that is to lengthen the bodice and lengthen the sleeves because they are always way too short for me. I am going to be lengthening the sleeves for view A by 1 inch, and I'm going to be lengthening the bodice by 1 inch also. That means I also need to add 1 inch of length to the front flounce and the front of the facing as well. So I've got all those pieces here. None of them have lengthened and shortened lines on them, so I'm kind of adding my own and hoping for the best. So the thing that I've done here is I have drawn a lengthen and shorten line probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches down from the notch marks on the sleeve. That's because I don't want to add too much extra kind of width to the bottom of this. I'd like to have the just extra length. I have drawn a perpendicular line through the grain line. Then, as I say, I need to add 1 inch, so I've drawn a inch rectangle here, so there's 2 lines here. And what I'm going to do is cut the sleeve apart, stick it down, put the reference line in, stick the top down, and smooth out the edges. So I'm going to take the cut edge of that pattern piece and line it up with the line that I have drawn on my scrap paper. So the cut edge is along the bottom line that I've drawn with that 1 inch wide rectangle. I'm going to tape that down all the way along, making sure everything is lying nice and flatly. Then I'm going to take my straight edge of my French curve and just extend that grain line, that perpendicular line. It doesn't have to be the grain line, it just happens to be the grain line this time, through the box that I've drawn so that I can line up the bottom part of the sleeve and tape that down. So I've got the cut edge of the bottom part of the sleeve along the line that I drew that was 1 inch away from the original line, and then I have lined up the perpendicular line through all 3 pieces of paper. Stick it all down. The next thing we want to do is smooth out the sides of the sleeves. So kind of, so I'm taking a little bit off the top of the sleeve here, and then I'm adding in a little bit of seam allowance there. I'm just going to do exactly the same on the other side, and I am using the curved side of my French curve, and I've got the 4-inch mark at the notch there, so I'm going to put the 4-inch mark at the notch on this side so that it kind of mirrors that as well. So now that I've done that, we can cut out our newly lengthened sleeve. And there we have 1 inch of length added to the sleeve. So now I need to add some length, like I say, to the flounce, the front facing, the front 2 bodice pieces and the back bodice piece. So I'm going to work on the back piece first. One of the nice things about this pattern is that they did mark in the waist, and I have put that on every single pattern piece, and I'm going to use that line as where I'm going to lengthen my pattern, because I do, as I say, have a long torso, so it is in the waist that I need that extra little bit of room. So I have just drawn from the waistline that was marked in, I have just drawn a line all the way along there. It is at a right angle to this cut on the fold side of the pattern. So again, scrap piece of paper, I'm going to draw a rectangle that is 1 inch wide, cut the pattern piece apart. So our reference point this time is again the grain or the cut on the fold line, because that is at a right angle. So tape down the bottom part of the pattern, the cut edge along the bottom line of the rectangle that you've drawn. Use that registration line to carry it up so that you've got something to meet up with. So the cut edge of the top of the pattern piece is now being placed along the top edge of the 1 inch rectangle that we drew. Tape this down. So much pink nail varnish getting caught on this tape. So now we need to smooth out the gaps. So this one's easy because that is a straight line. This one, and there's a little bit of a jog from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to take my French curve and kind of just smooth that out. And then I do it by eye. I don't do it as like, oh, this is right or this is right. I do it by eye. The other thing that we're going to want to do is just even out the darts. Now these are curved darts, so again I'm doing it by eye, trying to find a piece that matches. And so I've got the 10-inch point on my French curve at the points here for the dart, and that kind of like blended in quite nicely. Again, I am self-taught. I do not know if I'm doing this correctly. I'm doing something that has worked for me in the past, and fingers crossed will work for me this time as well. We will soon find out when I make these up. But like I say, I am literally making this up as I go along. This is how it's done when there are lengthened and shortened lines on patterns. So I'm kind of going with that. So anyway, once you have smoothed out your lines, you want to cut out your new pattern piece. And I've lengthened the back panel by 1 inch. So I'm going to do the same to the 2 front panels and the flounce, because if we make this front panel longer, we need the flounce to be long enough to fit into it as well, so we need to add 1 inch to that. And then we also need to do the facing. We need to add 1 inch to the facing as well, which I also have here. Okay, so I've altered the 2 back pieces for A, B and C, and I'm now going to alter the front piece. And I'm going to use the same principle. The waist was marked on there, so I'm going to put a line across that, and that's going to be my cut line, my lengthen and shorten line. The thing to remember is that if you're doing anything to your front piece, you need to do the same thing to the facing. So the way I have marked on where I'm adding the difference is that I've laid my facing over the top of my pattern piece and just put in my lengthen and shorten line there. I've always found that on commercial patterns, they very rarely put lengthen and shorten lines on their facing pieces, even though they have them on their pattern pieces. So that's just something that you need to remember to do, because if you're lengthening the front of your pattern, you're going to need to lengthen the front of your front facing as well. Same deal, I'm going to draw a box or a rectangle 1 inch wide on this piece of paper, cut through the pattern, stick it down, put the reference mark on it, stick the top piece down, true up the edges, cut it out, and then I'm going to do the same for the facing. Things are a little bit different with the facing, so rather than use the grain line, I've drawn a perpendicular line through my cut line, my lengthen and shorten line, so that I have the right angles. I'm going to cut this out and stick it down in the same manner that I have done with all the other ones. Okay, so now that I have got it lengthened, I'm then going to lay my front piece over and match up the curves. My battery's flashing. I'm going to try and do that before it dies. Okay, I've changed the battery, battery one. As I was saying, I have my facing piece with the length I need added, but not cut out to the new shape. So gonna line everything up and then just use the pattern piece as a template to help if I had a slightly sharper point on my pencil. But so I've got the bottom edge lined up, I've got the edge all the way around lined up, so that's going to be my new cut line for this one, and then this one I'm going to sort out in just a second. So let's get this done first. That's all good. We want our 3 inches wide, so I'm going to put a mark 3 inches down there so that it maintains that 3 inch wide kind of look. And again, just find a part of the French curve that kind of works, drawing that line and cut it out. Take off all the excess because we don't need that or that. And now we have a lengthened front bodice and a front facing that matches exactly. So the only other part that I've got left to do is the front flounce, because we've added 1 inch of length to this, so we need to add 1 inch of length to the front flounce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add it up here. I'm just going to add 1 inch of length there and hope that that works. I can't see why it won't. Okay, so with this one I have drawn a line 1 inch away from the edge here, and then I've drawn my perpendicular line through it. I'm going to chop through that, stick this down, draw my reference line in, match up the cut edge and the reference line and stick that down. I hope that yeah, that just fits in. And then just join up the edges. Now the thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to add 1 inch of length to this inside edge here, because that is what is going to get sewn to the front of our blouse. So we've added 1 inch of length to the bodice, so we needed to add that extra inch of length in there, which we've now done. So I'm going to true up the edges and then cut this piece out, and then the alterations for this pattern are done. As ever, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section down below and I will do my best to answer them for you. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye!